Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Pixel Peak.
Hope you guys got the chance to watch our special episode last week. We had fun doing raps and introducing our new members to the team.
Yes, last week was a lot of fun, but now it's time to shift our focus back to our regular news.
Starting us off, Stardew Valley has a new update that will interest all of its players on all the consoles.
12 years after the original release, the controversial game 6 Days in Fallujah is set to be released in 2021.
It has been announced that E3 will be an online-only event this year. But that does mean that they can finally celebrate its 25th anniversary.
And in the UK, pigs have been taught how to play video games.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Alright, anyways there, for this week's analysis segment, with our PC analyst, Walker Peters, the GeForce RTX series has continued to have problems with availability, and its prices have even risen.
For game review, we have Elizabeth Dodson playing the newly revamped for the Nintendo Switch Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury.
Lots to discuss.
We hope you enjoy this week's episode. I'm Sydney Thompson.
And I'm Bryce Gates, and we hope you enjoy your stay here on
Pixel Peak.
Stardew Valley is a 2D RPG game which revolves around the main character inheriting the farm of their grandfather. The game was released in 2016 and will celebrate its 5th year anniversary this Thursday. Over its lifespan, it has gained a loyal fan following due to its relaxing gameplay. Players can farm, of course, but they can also build and design the farm however they want, interact with non-playable characters, and even romance with them. Explore caves and battle monsters, as well as customizing the main character. It's no wonder the game has sold over 10 million copies, and fans of the game will be happy to hear that it is now available on the Switch, Xbox One, and PS4. However, there's no news currently available on when the game will be available on the next-gen consoles, which was released back in November, but is likely to happen in somewhat distant future. Recently added to the game, however, in the 1.5 update was the multiplayer in the form of co-op, which will be available in a local split-screen format. More on the technical side, the advanced option menu was added, which allows for modifications to world generation, in-game rules, and new playthroughs. As far as gameplay goes, Ginger Island was added to the Fern Islands and includes new events and a quest line. A main NPC and a few secondary NPCs will be included with the island, along with the ever-changing volcano dungeon for players to explore.
For the first time in roughly 12 years, one of the most controversial games based on an extremely sensitive subject is finally set to be released. 6 Days in Fallujah, which is projected to be released in 2021 after its original 2009 release date was botched, will be a first-person tactical military shooter based on real accounts from Marines and Iraqi civilians from the Second Battle of Fallujah in 2004. Originally a third-person shooter planned to be developed by Atomic Games and published by Konami, it is now being developed by Highwire Games and set to be published by a new company, Victura. So why was it cancelled? When first teased to the public in 2009, several groups ranging from British military veterans, family members of soldiers, and anti-war groups came forward with heavy criticism that spread across the world and led to Konami dropping out of the project in order to protect their name. So why is it making a comeback? It is largely in part because of the first-hand account from a veteran who took part in both production of the game and fighting in the battle. Marine Sergeant Eddie Garcia claims that war is filled with uncertainty and tough choices that can't be understood by watching someone on a TV or movie screen make those choices for you, Garcia stated. Video games can help all of us understand real-world events in ways other media can't. Garcia is not only featured in the game itself, he was the one who proposed the game originally in 2005, after participating in the battle and getting wounded while fighting. New developer Highwire Games has acknowledged the past controversies of this title and have since released a statement claiming they are going through with the game to not only help us understand what happened, but why it happened in the first place.
E3 has a long history of gathering gamers together, with even its very first event in 1995 drawing more than 50,000 people to the Los Angeles Convention Center. The number of attendants have stayed fairly consistent between 2017 and 2019, each averaging in the high 60,000s. However, in 2020, this was the first time in 25 years that the show has not been hosted, which was due to the coronavirus pandemic. This year, E3 was announced that it will be an online-only format of the event to replace the Mega Show in Los Angeles. While exact details haven't been released as of yet, the basic formatting will follow an awards show, a preview kickoff night, and a 2-hour keynote by some major publishers and industry partners. That being said, it is unclear how prevalent E3 will be this year or the years to come. Over the past decade, some major publishers have taken to their own methods to announce their games, such as Nintendo with the Nintendo Directs, as well as PlayStation and EA's regular release of newsletters, and other third-party events going into the future. Lastly, Summer Game Fest was launched last year to cover the loss of E3, which will return this year. Although, instead of the 4-month-long event, which had 27 live stream updates spread throughout, the second Game Fest will take place inside just 1 month, which should take a much more concentrated format.
In a story that brings a touch of science to gaming, researchers in the UK were able to train 4 pigs, Hamlet, Ivory, Omelette, and Ebony, to play a simple video game. The goal of the game was to operate a joystick to steer a ball into targets on screen that will in turn dispense treats for successfully hitting targets. The researchers claim that because they can make this connection between their own input and what is happening on screen is no small feat. But after playing for a while, a discovery was made that the pigs were not just in it for the treats. During the middle of the experiment, the treat dispenser broke, but the pigs continued to play out of their own will, with a little encouragement from the researchers. While playing, the team was able to distinguish between which of the pigs were better at the game, and which were worse. In a battle of consistent accuracy, Ivory beat Omelette when it came to hitting one-sided targets. But no matter which one was better or worse, the fact that each of them could successfully play the game in some way shows that the team of researchers are confident it was not just chance. When it comes to comparing the pigs playing to other animals, they are still bested by chimpanzees and monkeys, who obviously would always have an advantage of opposable thumbs. But joystick games are only the beginning of what could come in the future of animal esports, and it is going to take a lot more gaming experiments to find out what is possible.
Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury is the newest installment in the Mario franchise that has been running strong since 1983. The newest game was published by Nintendo and was developed by Nintendo One-Up Studio, Nintendo Entertainment Analysis and Development, and Nintendo EAD Tokyo, and was produced by Yoshisaki Kazumi. The game was created for the Nintendo Switch and was published on February 12th of 2021. The game is of the platform variety, and you can play solo, as you see me here playing now, or you can play with up to 4 different people. One major difference that I could tell almost immediately was the change in both graphics and character movement. In past games, in the world maps, you could only follow the paths laid out for you. Yet, with this new one, you can go off the beaten path, although you have to clear each level to get to the final boss area and then on to the next world. The plot for the game is similar to the other Mario games out there, but instead of having to rescue Princess Peach, you have to rescue each world's Sprixie from Bowser's grasp. Like I stated previously, character movement along with graphics has improved greatly, but still keeps to its cartoon roots. Along with the normal character movement of forward, backward, side to side, and jumping, this game does include some new features that I found interesting, like being able to climb up walls as Cat Mario. Now, since this is the first Mario game that I have played in literal years, it could be that these were included in the game already and I just didn't know. However, I did find the fact that you can become a literal cat that walks on all 4 legs extremely adorable. And you might see in some of these clips that I prefer to be the cat version of Mario over just being plain old Mario. Nothing against the guy, but other than jumping on enemies, you really can't do anything with him. The Super Mario 3D World isn't the only area that you can play. No. Let me introduce you to Bowser's Fury, an entirely new map that you can play on top of the quote-unquote base game. Gone is your limit on only having a certain amount of lives, and enter an open world. You play as Mario, joined by Bowser Jr., and your goal is to save the land of Lake Lapcat from an evil black goo that has taken control of the Koopa King. Along with exploring the world, every few minutes Bowser will pop up exploding with fury, hence the name of the map, which sends the world into an apocalyptic storm. This will end in only a few minutes, but it can be overcome. There are several ways that you can do this. One way is to directly confront Bowser, and then the other way is by reaching a Catshine, which is this game mode's main collectible. Unlike in other Mario games where you basically have free reign on where and when things get done, in this mode of the game, you have to be ready at a minute's notice to deal with Bowser and his tantrums. With the game's music, I found myself, more often than I'd like to admit, jamming out to it, and it put me in a happy mindset for the remainder of both my game and day. The music itself has a happy-go-lucky feel to it, however, the sudden changes once you get to a particularly hard boss, or when you're fighting Bowser himself, is still on the happy side of things, yet the game adds dark tones to it, which I found was a nice touch. This game really doesn't have anything new when it comes to combat. Like, yes, you can get fire powers from a fire flower to shoot fireballs at your enemies, and you can become a gigantic to stomp on your enemies if you get a Mega Mushroom, but those have already been in the game from past games. However, this game does include some new ones that I personally quickly came to love as much as the older ones. One of these was a floating bell that gives you cat powers, or the Takuni leaf, which, as the name suggests, lets you float like a leaf. Now, like I stated earlier in the review, this is the first time I have played a Mario game in a few years, so please forgive me if my examples were already in the game. Overall, I give this game a score of top of the mountain for its improved game movement, graphics, game design, and with the inclusion of a new world with constant and ever-evolving challenges, making me want to come back to both portions of the game over any other game in my current collection.
Hello, Walker. Thank you so much for coming back for another season of Pixel Peak.
Glad to be back.
So, for those of you who don't know, Walker is our PC analyst and has been here on the show all 6 seasons so far, just like myself.
And unfortunately, it'll be the last season for the both of us, as both of us are planning to graduate this semester.
I know, it's so sad. I'll really miss doing this show. I totally agree. So let's make the best of this last season together and get right into it. So, NVIDIA's new RTX 3060 is set to release February 25th, though has already seen 50% price increases. So what is going on there?
Supply of NVIDIA's newest graphics card is limited because of issues with raw material supplies. The materials used to produce the graphic cards are more scarce than they had expected right now, and as such, there's a lower stock of graphics cards. To compensate, many retailers are bumping the prices up to make up for the lost product by getting a more margin on what they do have. And consumers are not happy about this because it does drive the price up a lot, 50%, as we've seen.
Well, it isn't really their fault that they can't get the raw materials, but something went wrong along the way. So, do you agree with how the situation is being handled?
Well, like you said, it's of course not NVIDIA's fault. It's something that's an extremely complex process that can be affected by all multitudes of things. But the one thing they do have control over is communication, both to their retail partners and to consumers. By letting their retail partners know that stock might be limited initially, but more would come in at a later date, they can get the retailers to act accordingly and plan better for an event such as this. And by telling consumers, likewise, consumers can plan better and either know early on that they may expect to spend more than they expected, or just wait or buy something else maybe.
Yep. I imagine no one really likes to get caught off guard by that sort of thing. So, how do you think this impact on sales will affect the company?
It's not as though everything is banking on the sale of this new graphics card, but I know they aren't happy about it. NVIDIA will be making less money because they're selling less, and the retailers are pocketing the difference with the price increase. Of course, they're a big company, they're not suffering too greatly, but it's not what anyone wanted to see there, I'm sure. And I hope that they are trying to hurry up and get more product out so that they can make up the difference for themselves.
Yeah, they're not going to go under, but it's certainly not ideal for them to not be making as much money as they had projected. So, what other companies have been affected by these shortages, and have they seen a drop in their stock as well?
Other companies that produce computer equipment and hardware, such as AMD, any graphics card company, because a lot of the materials used are used in just about anything for computers. But like I said, this isn't too big of a deal for the companies financially or business-wise. Both NVIDIA and I believe AMD have had good months in the stock market. This isn't going to be a huge hit to the company. It's just not as good as they expected, which of course in business speak is a bad thing for them.
So how would you like to see these companies do better and improve?
Like I mentioned earlier, better communication with retailers and consumers is the most important thing. Of course, we are talking about this 9 days before the graphics card is set to be released, but it's still an issue, and that's not too much time in the grand scheme of things. By letting retailers know earlier on that there might be issues with stock, but that more will be forthcoming, it's not going to be scarce forever, the retailers can plan accordingly and maybe not bump up the prices so much, or let consumers know that they may have to wait or buy something else.
Yeah, I think that really would have streamlined the whole process and made things a lot easier along the way. So, how might this impact people's ability to game? That's a question I'm sure a lot of our viewers are wondering.
Well, I'm sure a lot of gamers are disappointed that they won't be able to get their hands on the newest hardware as soon as they had liked or at all. But the good news is, as this is a niche product aimed at computer gaming hobbyists, most of the people who were hoping to buy this already do have working and decent setups and hardware. So they will still be able to play video games, but they may just not be able to play the newest AAA graphic intensive games with as much power as they had hoped to yet.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show, Walker, and answering our questions. And to close out the episode, let's throw it back to Bryce and Sydney.
Thank you for the analysis, Walker. We'll be sad to lose you next season.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to keep in touch through Among Us.
For sure. But wow, lots of news this week.
Yeah, that pig store was something else, compared to our typical gaming news.
I don't know, we've covered other stories with their own quirkiness and flair.
That is true. Maybe there will be something even stranger.
Who knows? As always, we have new Pixel Peak episodes coming out every Monday afternoon at noon. You can find them on watchuptv.com, Skybush Channel 20 and 1020, Spectrum Channel 198, and on App State's Campus Television Channel 23.3.
And you can always get reminded of upcoming episodes by following our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts at Pixel Peak App TV.
Of course, we have our incredible crew to thank for another great episode. Thanks to writers Rebecca Larson, Josh Beal, and Zach White, PC analyst Walker Peters, game reviewer Elizabeth Dodson, and producers Nick Corbin, Elise Taylor, Haley Cipher, and Jacob Barber for another week of impeccable gaming industry content.
Thank you all for watching, and we hope you enjoyed your stay on Pixel Peak.